Good evening. As technology continues to advance, video games have become a staple form of entertainment for many individuals worldwide. However, with the rise in popularity of violent video games, there has been a growing concern about the potential negative impact that these games may have on players, particularly in regards to the promotion of violent behavior. Today, I will argue that violent video games do encourage players to become violent in real life, and I will support this claim with evidence from academic studies, expert opinions, and real-world examples. Firstly, let us consider the findings of several studies conducted in recent years. One such study, published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, found that participants who played a violent video game for just about 20 minutes exhibited a greater degree of aggressive behavior than those who played a non-violent video game. Moreover, the study found that the more immersed the players were in the game, the greater their aggressive tendencies became. Another study, conducted by the American Psychological Association, found that playing violent video games is linked to increased aggression, decreased empathy, and desensitization to violence. These studies provide strong evidence to support the notion that violent video games can indeed influence players to become more violent in real life. Expert opinions from psychologists and criminologists have also highlighted the potential dangers of violent video games. In 2013, the American Psychological Association released a statement declaring that there is a clear link between violent video games and increased aggression among players. The statement cited a variety of evidence, including studies showing that children who played violent video games are more likely to display aggressive behavior, and that the effect of violent video games on aggression is comparable to the effect of smoking on lung cancer. Similarly, renowned criminologist James Fox has argued that violent video games desensitize players to violence and make it more likely for them to act out in violent ways. These expert opinions show the idea that violent video games have a negative impact on players' behaviors. I mean, just look at the cases that they put on Call of Duty, all suited up, and they even bring out accessories that have camo, which we learn in movies that it's usually dealing with war and other things. There are also several real-world examples that demonstrate the link between violent video games and violent behavior. One of the most well-known examples is the 1999 Columbine High School massacre, in which two perpetrators were avid players of violent video games. The killer had actually created their own video game that allowed players to simulate a school shooting, and it had been suggested that their exposure to violent video games played a great role in their decision to carry out the massacre. More recently, in 2019, a shooting at a gaming tournament in Jacksonville, Florida was carried out by a player who had a history of playing violent video games. While it's impossible to say definitively whether these individuals would have committed violent acts regardless of their exposure to violent video games, it is clear that their obsession with such games was a significant factor in their behavior. In conclusion, there is a wealth of evidence to support the claim that violent video games encourages players to become violent in real life. Studies have shown that playing violent video games leads to increased aggression and decreased empathy, while expert opinions and real-world examples demonstrate the negative impact of violent video games on behavior. While it is important to acknowledge that not all players of violent video games will become violent in real life, like me, the potential consequences of exposure to such games are too significant to be ignored. Therefore, it is essential that we take steps to limit the availability and accessibility of violent video games, particularly to young people who are most vulnerable to their negative effects. Thank you.